Hello and welcome, this is Rob Kelsall, Head of Sales with SecPod, and in this demonstration we're going to be taking a look at the latest from SecPod version 6.5. This platform uniquely offers you the ability to gain insight into not just your traditional IT infrastructure, but your cloud infrastructure also. It also offers a continuous approach and an automated approach, combining the best of both worlds, from agentless assessment to agent-based continual assessment and remediation in the same platform, powered by the world's largest security intelligence library. Only SecPod gives you the ability to reduce your IT security risks in the most efficient manner whilst minimizing disruption to your end users and at the same time staying compliant. Let's take a look at the solution. So when we first log into the SailorOne platform, we'll be presented with this single pane of glass into our organization, showing all of our cloud infrastructure as well as our traditional IT infrastructure. If you're an MSP, you can, of course, using our multi-tenant platform here, manage multiple customers from a single pane of glass. Or if you're an enterprise, you'll be able to see multiple sites across your organization. Whether it be your traditional IT, such as your network devices, routers, switches, security appliances, servers, whether they're virtual or physical, as well as your laptops, or if it's your cloud infrastructure across currently supported Azure or AWS, with Google Cloud coming soon, you'll have this single pane of glass view into where those assets are located, risks associated, as well as how you're doing over time, and your remediation SLA in terms of violations or compliant sites or devices. We'll also show you your overall cyber hygiene score. This is a topic I'll dig into in a little bit more detail as we progress through the demonstration. Speaking of which, I'm going to kick off with our CVEM solution, Continuous Vulnerability and Exposure Management. Talk to you about the different modules and the value there. And then following that, we'll move into our Cloud Native Application Protection Platform, or CNAP, and show you the various modules and capabilities there. Let's get into it. Okay, so here we are in the CVEM solution. And on this main dashboard here, we can see all of the devices that are part of this particular site, along with various information pertaining to software vulnerabilities, misconfigurations, posture anomalies, and missing patches. In fact, as I mentioned previously, SecPod does provide our own security intelligence database, which is the largest in the world, going above and beyond just your traditional CVE vulnerabilities and giving insights into security best practices, as well as controls that are part of various compliance standards, posture anomalies and unnecessary exposures, missing patches, and unwanted or unused software. So really going above and beyond your traditional vulnerability assessment and providing a viewpoint into all weaknesses into the environment. On this main dashboard, you can actually scroll down and you can start to see how we will prioritize those weaknesses into things that you might want to track or attend to today or immediately act upon. But the first thing I want to draw your attention to is how we uniquely track and help you understand your overall cyber hygiene score. So the cyber hygiene score is really helpful to organizations because it helps you pinpoint those rogue systems in your environment that are most likely to be the cause or the root cause of your next cyber attack. Cyber hygiene score itself, on the top left here, actually has various contributors, not just vulnerabilities, but it's also going to take a look at prioritized risks, missing patches, posture anomalies, and misconfigurations to give you that overall score for the site. But then it will also take those contributors into account for each individual system as well. So a system might have the most vulnerabilities in your organization, but is not necessarily the system that's most likely going to be the cause of your next cyber attack, because it may or may not be misconfigured in addition to having those vulnerabilities. Good example for that might be, a system that has a critical vulnerability in Google Chrome, but then if it's misconfigured and also has a local admin account, and that user was to click a link that opens in Google Chrome with local admin privileges, and allows some kind of remote code execution through the browser vulnerability, that's highly likely going to be the cause of your next cyber attack, versus a system that has vulnerabilities but is not necessarily misconfigured, may not be exploited in that way. So this is a really important first step to understand, or to give meaning, if you will, to all of the weaknesses in your environment, how they combine to offer that cyber hygiene score. So now that we understand our cyber hygiene score, let's take a look at how this information came to be and the various modules that comprise this CVEM solution. Back on the dashboard here, just real quick, the navigation bar on the left allows you to see all devices, your reports, set up alerts, and see audit logs as well as log out of the solution. But the main navigation bar is going to be this affectionately referred to waffle menu top center here, where we can see the various modules. All of the modules on the suite work hand in hand, giving you visibility and normalization of your environment, detection of weaknesses, prioritization of weaknesses, and then the ability to take action and remediate in your environment. We'll take a look at each of these modules in turn, starting with asset exposure. So the asset exposure module is a great place to start to normalize your environment and reduce your attack surface. It's going to show you all of your operating systems, your software that's installed within those operating systems, whether that be unused software or out-of-date software. You can then start to understand applications that should not be installed, remove them, and reduce your attack surface. A great example here might be a server where you're wondering if you should be patching Google Chrome, but if it's a web application server, why is Google Chrome even installed? Let's remove it and reduce the attack surface. Next, let's take a look at the posture anomaly module. Anomalies between systems may be an indicator of compromise, an unusual configuration or weakness in a system that might allow an attacker to gain access. For example, unusual ports open on servers or unusual software that's installed. An example of this might be, let's say you've got Roblox installed on a system, as my kids do. And although that's not a bad application, it's certainly not a business application that should be installed, that you would be patching. And if that's installed on, say, 1 out of 200 laptops, then maybe you should uninstall that application. Wherever we show you weaknesses in the Saner platform, you're going to be able to remediate. So an unusually installed application, for example, we would go ahead and give you the ability to uninstall that. An unusual port, we would give you the ability to close that port. The other benefit within the posture anomaly module is that you can configure your own custom rules as well. So you have this detection and response capability. You can check for pretty much anything and then specify an action to take should that criteria be met. So now that we've started to normalize our environment and reduce the attack surface, we can get into known weaknesses, starting with known vulnerabilities. Here on the vulnerability management dashboard, we can see vulnerabilities based on criticality, exploitability, and the fidelity of the attack. So those vulnerabilities with an active attack might be ones that you want to get to sooner rather than later. We can also see systems in our environment with the total number of vulnerabilities found, as well as the individual vulnerabilities prioritized based on the criticality, exploitability, and fidelity of the attack. So we've got a couple here at the top. We can see the radioactive sign. It's a high fidelity attack. There's an active attack here, command injection vulnerability in Jenkins, and we might want to fix that sooner rather than later. I'll come back to how we take action from that in a minute. But just scrolling down the dashboard here, we can also see vulnerabilities based on operating system, vulnerabilities by groups, aging, top vulnerable applications, and our top recommended remediation. Speaking of remediation, because SecPod offers a fully integrated platform for detection and remediation, we not only show you what the fix is, but we can also give you the ability to remediate directly from the vulnerability management view. We even support workflow. If you want to go in and remediate, it will show you the affected systems, pull down the patch and allow you to schedule that remediation. Or if you want to have your security team approve patches and then someone in IT Ops come in and deploy only approved patches, we also support that patch approval workflow too. If you've decided you've accepted the risk, maybe you want to stay on an older version of Jenkins here, you can also exclude. You can have an exclude policy, give it a name and description, reason, number of days you want that to stay. This will remove the vulnerability from our reports. Of course, you can still see your exceptions. You can produce a report to show you that, but you can now exclude this vulnerability either at an account level, particular group, or an individual device level. If you want to maybe understand if a vulnerability has a false positive or a false negative, and you want to see what SecPod is looking at to verify that this particular vulnerability exists, you can also drill down into an individual device and see vulnerabilities just for that device. So for example, on this demo Windows server here, we can see it has some vulnerabilities in Oracle Java JDK. We just have to expand that, and we can now take a look at the evidence and see exactly what SecPod assessed for. Of course, you've got your standard dashboard here, but we can also customize reports and have those emailed as PDF out on a regular basis. Moving on into our configuration management module, here we can see the dashboard showing rule compliance across various devices and groups within the system. Under benchmarks here, you can see we've assigned some default benchmarks to various groups, and we can see individual systems and the number of compliance checks that have been met with a pass or a fail, as well as the criticality of those misconfigurations based on how an attacker might use that misconfiguration to attack your environment. We can see top deviant assets, and again, just like vulnerability management, we can see the top remediation recommendation. The main difference here with compliance management or configuration management, whatever you want to call it, is that it's customizable to your environment. You don't just have to accept a default set of security controls or best practices. You can actually come in here and you can configure a benchmark yourself. You can either create a custom benchmark based on your own set of controls, or you can go ahead and specify a template from a specific category. So for example, we've got general compliance here, which would be a catch-all. We've also got NIST, PCI, HIPAA, STIG, and CIS. So let's say, for example, we wanted to specify CIS compliance for Windows Server 2025. Go ahead and select. And we can take a look at the individual controls and what the recommended settings are. You can customize here, you can remove controls, you can specify a different setting, and you can then save this and apply it to a particular group. Once we come back to the dashboard and you can see the missing controls, you also have the ability to fix. So for example, back in the benchmark verification here, let's just go into a different one here just so we can show you a little bit more, but let's go into PCI, for example. Let's say we're looking at PCI for Windows 2019. Again, we're going to go ahead and click verify. So we can see what the control is. For example, security requires secure RPC connection. We can click into the CCE and we can see what the actual fix is going to be. You don't have to create your own custom script to remediate this. SecPod automatically tells you the fix and allows you to go ahead and remediate directly in the platform. So you can see here under fix misconfigurations, we can go ahead and schedule a fix for a particular misconfiguration, or if you wanted to, you could also automate the enforcement of controls from a particular benchmark. Okay, so with that, we've covered the visibility and normalization phase as well as the detection phase of the CVM platform. Before we go into prioritization and remediation, I want to just talk quickly about how easy it is to gather this information in your environment. So going over to the configuration cog here, going into the CVM solution, first of all we can see our agent deployment. Now SecPod supports a range of different operating systems for the agent, ranging from Windows to Linux and various flavors of Debian, macOS and AIX. Once the agent is on, it will assess itself, of course, but you can also promote the agent to be a network scanner as well. Once you've promoted the agent to be a network scanner, you can then give it a scan config. And the scan config is going to be an IP range and a schedule that you want this to run on. And then a scan policy. And the scan policy is where you're actually going to define exactly what you want to scan for. So you could see here, if you want to include AFP file servers, Cisco kit, firewalls, IP cameras even, Juniper, different network devices and operating systems, printers, routers, even have things like web applications, web servers, Wi-Fi routers, the list goes on. So with a scan config and a scan policy, that agent is going to scan the network, find systems within your network, and then obviously bring back not just the device, but the weaknesses associated with those devices as well. And as we saw in the vulnerability management tab, everything gets consolidated into a single view. Whether it was detected with the agent or the scanner, you have that single pane of glass to view weaknesses in your environment. So next, let's talk about remediation. I'm over here from the waffle menu again. I'm over in the risk prioritization module now. And in here, you can see that we give you that single pane of glass across different weaknesses that need to be remediated in your environment. And we categorize things not just based on the criticality, but based on whether we think you should track, so patch in your own time within your own predefined SLA, or attend, maybe some things that you should do this week. Maybe you have a change control process that you want to drive those into, or things that you want to act upon today. So this is kind of your low-hanging fruit and things that represent a serious risk to being exploited in your environment. So not only are we looking at CVSS here, but we're also looking at EPSS. We're looking at the level of exploitation for the vulnerability or misconfiguration. We're looking at whether an attack is automatable, what the technical impact is to recover, as well as the criticality of the application or the device within your environment in order to define the weakness into an act, attend, or track category. If we click into a particular category, so let's go and have a look at ACT, for example, you can see we've got various different vulnerabilities in here. And if you want to find out why this was categorized as an ACT, so for this 7-zip vulnerability, for example, we can see here that the level of exploitation is high. Although the attack is not automatable, it does have a full technical impact to recover, and it's on an essential device within this environment. So here we would go ahead and just click remediate, and that would take us straight into the patch required as well as the device that's affected, and we can then go ahead and schedule that remediation. Okay, so next we come to our patch management module, one of the most feature-packed modules in the platform. This is really going to be a game changer for you in terms of taking your patch management capabilities to the next level. In this demonstration, in fact, we don't have time to go through every single feature, but I do just want to call out before we get going the top 10 features, if you will, that you will find useful in this particular module. So first up, we're going to have patch SLA monitoring. This is really going to stop the house looking or appearing on fire as soon as a patch is released. It gives you some breathing room, and your reports are only going to show red if you breach that SLA. We also offer a broad range of operating systems that we support: Unix, Linux, Mac, Windows, AIX, and over 600 third-party applications. We offer integrated pre and post patch vulnerability assessment, so you can see the underlying vulnerability has been remediated once the patch has been deployed. Two ways, and we're going to show this in the demo, two ways to remediate. One is a scheduled remediation. The second is an automated remediation, again at a particular point in time. But both of these remediation options offer you the ability to test before deployment, automatically test before deployment. We offer firmware support, patch approval workflow, patch rollback, and custom reporting. So let's get into some of these capabilities, but we'll start off just giving you a quick tour of the dashboard here. So on the main dashboard here, you've got all of the information at your fingertips to give you your day-to-day patch operations, if you will. Top left, we're going to show you your device compliance, number of devices that have missing patches. We're going to show your asset compliance. This is your software packages, if you will, that are up to date or need patching. Patches by severity. And then we can see in this particular environment here, this is just actually my own test environment, there's 928 vulnerabilities currently that would be fixed in just 9 patches across our 3 devices here. We can see devices based on number of patches required, and I can also flick the view here. This is a nice view where you can just flip to see your applications and the number of hosts that are affected along with how many vulnerabilities. So we can see very quickly here we have an Apple Mac OS 15 update that's needed on 2 devices that would resolve the bulk of the vulnerabilities in this particular environment. You can see patches by operating system here, patches by vendor. You can see how we're doing over time and how we're impacting the number of vulnerabilities with our patches installed over time, as well as any packages that have been deployed that have failed and any jobs that are planned or have completed here as well. So before we get into an actual remediation job, I want to talk about SLA configuration. You might have a policy internally from senior management that you need to deploy patches for critical vulnerabilities within a certain amount of time. You don't want your report going red until you've passed that SLA. So we can go ahead here and configure the SLA. Let's say we wanted to have critical and high within 10 days. And medium within 15, and then low within 30, and we're not worried about feature updates. We go ahead and create this SLA policy, and then I'm just going to jump over to the reporting tab here. Rather than just seeing things go in red as soon as a patch is released, we can run this remediation SLA report, and we can see here on the report total number of devices under SLA, remediation, violations, adherence, and then various information pertaining to specific patches that were deployed across the environment. This, of course, can be delivered as a PDF via email on a scheduled basis. Let's take a look at remediation next. There's 2 ways that we can get into a remediation job. First of all, by selecting specific patches we want to deploy to a specific system or group of systems at a specific time, and secondly through an automation rule. Let's start by looking at our missing patches view. Here we can filter by a specific group, maybe Active Directory group, or specific patch type. Let's say, for example, we wanted to deploy 7-zip. We click the patch and then apply selected patches. You can see there's 2 patches here for one applicable system that's currently offline. Give the job a name. Let's say this was a server and we wanted to deploy this within a change control window. You can specify a custom date and time. So let's say Saturday at 2 AM, and we want it to be finished by 4 AM because that's our change window. We want to reboot automatically. We want to have a patching notification for maybe for the system administrator to say this has been completed. Also, if there's a logged on user, there would be a notification. If there are any pre or post scripts, we can specify those here. And there's also a neat feature. I've only got one system here that's applicable for this patch, but let's say there was 100 servers. We could choose to deliver this to a test system first, and then after it's been successfully deployed, maybe the following weekend, we would continue the deployment of this patch to our other production systems. So that's kind of your more traditional way. The second approach would be an automation rule. Now let's say for your laptop users, maybe you don't want to have to come in and schedule patching on a weekly basis. So we can see here again a list of applications that are in our environment and a number of hosts. Let's say we want to automatically patch Apple Keynote. Let's create an automation rule here. And we'll just call this auto patch Keynote. Give this a description. Say we want to automatically patch only for critical and high security patches. You can also add pre and post scripts here if you wish to. And we want to deploy this to our, well, let's just do all Macs. You can also, just like we saw with the schedule patch, do a test deployment here. So maybe in our Mac OS group here, we want to deploy to the MacBook Pro first, and then we'll deploy to other systems after that has been deployed successfully. So we're able to provide an automated rule here to free up time, but without end user disruption, because we're going to perform a test beforehand, and only if that's successful would we then continue to automatically patch other systems. And here you can see you've got a test schedule, so maybe we'll test this on a weekly basis on Tuesdays at 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. and we'll delay the production patching for maybe 3 days to give you that buffer. If the patch does have an issue, you're only going to affect the test system, but if that deploys successfully in 3 days' time, we'll continue to patch other systems within that group. Of course, if you do deploy patches and you find there's an issue, you can go into rollback and roll back deployed patches also. For any patches that you want to see why they've failed, you can go to status and you can see reasons for failure. Here there was one that was successful. You can see the Zoom client was updated. You can also see any scheduled jobs here, any automation rules. You can go in and pause or edit as you wish. So as I mentioned, there's a lot more to the patch module. I hope that covers the key features here, and we can always go into more detail on a one-on-one demo in the future with you. Now, while there's a lot more to talk about in just the patch management module, in the interest of time for this demonstration, I want to move on to endpoint management to round out the CVEM platform. I sometimes think about endpoint management as a catch-all. If there's something in your mind you think, can SecPod do that? Chances are we can do that with the EM module. Just like the other modules, we operate on the concept of checks and actions, so we're looking for something and then taking some action. In terms of the checks, there's lots of things out of the box. So for example, if you wanted to look for Windows and system security and see if your systems are running the latest antivirus, for example. So we can see here 100% of systems for this demo account are running Windows Defender. Other third-party antivirus applications would show up here as well. But if there was a system that didn't have AV, or perhaps a particular application was not running correctly, we could define an action here to maybe install the AV, restart the service as you wish. The actions themselves are quite broad in terms of things that we can do. Application and device control allows you to block applications from executing, as well as devices from being connected to endpoints. We could tune up systems. I'll jump into software deployment in a moment. That's quite a popular capability. We can also modify processes, registry keys and services, network settings. There's system tasks. So for example, if you wanted to schedule a reboot, you can do that here. Startup programs, security settings. We even have remote access built into the endpoint module, as well as remote scripting. But let's just quickly show you software deployment. This is one that we get asked about quite a lot. Out of the box, we have a library of third-party applications here that have freely available redistributables. If you want to upload your own applications, you can do that here. And you can specify an application and then install that to a system or group of systems. You can also uninstall applications. You don't have to have deployed them with SecPod. Of course, you can come in here, you can see all applications that are deployed in your environment and go ahead and uninstall those. That's really useful. For example, if you've got an outdated version of an application, you want to uninstall it and then reinstall a new version that perhaps didn't support an upgrade patch, for example, you can do that here. You can also upload third-party patches if we don't support them, and as I mentioned, we support over 600 apps, but if you've got your own application you want to upload a patch for, you could do that using the EM module too. As I mentioned, you've also got remote access, so any system that's got an agent on, we can go ahead and remote into that system here. And in this case, the system is locked, so we would obviously need to log into the system. I'll just go ahead and disconnect. So remote capabilities, a favorite feature of our MSP providers as well, might I add, and also very popular with our enterprise customers too. So the final capability in EM, just to round out this module I wanted to talk about, was remote scripting. This was a new feature added in 6.5. In fact, you can actually upload your own scripts here and maintain the central library of scripts. Also have some demo scripts here, so if you wanted to check for something like memory usage, disk usage, your library can be managed here, and then you can select scripts that you want to deploy. Just go ahead and show you an example here. You can apply the script through a task name, give it a description, and then specify devices we want to deploy that script to. Okay, so that rounds out the CVEM solution. Thanks for sticking with us so far. We're just over halfway through now. Next, let's take a look at the CNAP solution. So just back on the dashboard for CVEM here, on the left-hand tab, the burger menu top left here, you can quickly navigate to other environments within this account. So under cloud infrastructure here, we've either got the overview tab, or of course we can go into a specific environment. So I'm going to go into a test AWS environment here. And then we can see on the dashboard lots of information, very similar to CVEM in a way, but here obviously assessment of assets and weaknesses and misconfigurations specific to a cloud environment. Just like we saw with CVM, we've got a waffle menu at the top here, which is used for the bulk of the navigation, and you can see we have this same approach in terms of providing visibility and the ability to normalize your environment. We have compliance, entitlement management, and then, unique to SecPod, actually the ability to remediate and fix issues that we found in your cloud infrastructure. Let's take a look at asset exposure first. So much like a traditional IT infrastructure, a cloud infrastructure also starts with having to know what you have. And in this solution, you're going to see all of your cloud assets. But what is a cloud asset and how many cloud assets have you got? If I ask a customer that, typically they have no clue. They might have a rough idea of how much it's costing them, but they certainly wouldn't have the breakdown that this solution provides in terms of showing you your service distributions, your resource distributions, active resources based on their geographical location, various categories of resources, so compute, blockchains, databases, containers, etc., as well as your resource types and services over time in terms of how that's changed and what the actual cost of the environment is and the breakdown between various services. So this is the first step in any problem, is defining the scope of the problem, but the first step in CNAP to get that full asset inventory, if you will, of everything within your cloud infrastructure. Okay, so next let's take a look at the Cloud Security Posture Anomaly module. Just like a traditional IT environment, your cloud environment is also going to be something that you want to have some common configuration to, in terms of being able to normalize and ensure that your environment is nice and secure. So the PA module here is going to show you your posture anomaly density first of all, so you can see your biggest areas of weakness. So in this environment, AWS security groups allowing specific CIDR traffic. You can see we've got things like users with passwords not enabled, EC2 instances with monitoring disabled. You can also see that on the posture anomaly radar, our compute resources are most affected here. You can see details of the individual anomalies and what the recommendation is. And again, just like the CVM module, we don't only show you what the problem is, but we also allow you to fix that problem. Just need to go ahead and click Fix, and that will take you in to create a patch task to remediate this particular anomaly in your cloud environment. Okay, so we've looked at visibility and normalization. Now let's go into compliance management. This is a fantastic module in this solution. So we're in Cloud Security Posture Management now. We can see on the dashboard here, top 5 affected regions. We can see findings based on severity, issues on public resources. You can also see findings based on services, so majority here are in our service S3. We can also see benchmarks that have been assigned and how compliant we are with that particular benchmark. Now, just like CVM, SecPod provides a number of benchmark templates right out of the box. And all we have to do, so let's say we wanted to check PCI compliance for this AWS environment. We just go to benchmarks. You can see benchmarks have been created. Let's go create new benchmark and select PCI. We can select a region that we want this to apply to and click Next. We already have a benchmark present, but we'll just go ahead and overwrite. We can now see the various different sections, the configurations that are required. We can edit the criticality here if we wish to. And then go ahead and give the benchmark a name and description, and whether we want to assign this to other accounts or just this particular account that we're in. As soon as we've created that benchmark, we'll go ahead and assess those configuration items, as well as, of course, give us the ability to remediate. Very powerful, just a few clicks here, and you can quickly see your current compliance posture and have the fixes at your fingertips to get compliant in the most efficient way. Another area customers are finding issues is overprivileged access. So here in our Cloud Infrastructure Entitlement Management module, we're able to show you users, groups, policies and roles, and those policies with excessive permissions based on categories. This is a very visual module, so if we want to see, for example, which users have access to which resources, we can see an all access user here which resources they have access to. We can see groups and what they have access to, and then of course the individual categories and where we have issues there that might need to be remediated. And of course, back on the dashboard, wherever we have a weakness and we have a recommended remediation, all you have to do to fix this is not go into your environment and manually fix it. You just have to click the fix icon within SecPod. It's going to take you through to schedule a job. So we can see we're creating a patching task here. And go to the next step. You can see we're going to delete the specified group as recommended. We can specify when we want this to take place. Maybe we want to schedule that for a specific date and time. And then obviously review and deploy that patching job. Again, the ability to have that visibility and assessment along with the remediation is really key in everything we do here at SecPod. Now then, as with CVEM, you might be wondering, well, how did you get all of that information? And it really is very simple. All we have to do, again, is go to the cog here, control panel, go into the account, organization rather, in question, specify a new account, and then the account type. And in this case, I'm going to be looking at cloud infrastructure. So the account is created. We have to do is go into onboard and scan, and then we can specify the scan to take place for the particular cloud environment. Obviously there's no agent to install in this case, we just need to give credentials, and then we can go ahead and pull all of that information back to provide you with that full assessment of your cloud infrastructure. Okay, so finally, let's round out the CNAP solution demonstration by taking a look at our CSRM, our Cloud Security Remediation Management module. As you saw, as we were going through the other modules, wherever you see a weakness and you want to remediate that weakness, it will take you into this module essentially. But here in the module itself on the dashboard, we can see patches based on product, we can see patches required based on service or geographical location. You can see here top 10 missing patches, and you can filter between the various modules here. So for example, we want to see IAM policy management remediation, and we can see that information here. You can also see jobs that have completed, that have failed, that are in progress or scheduled, patch aging, so how long these issues have been in your environment, as well as the impact you've had. The top right here, we can go into an individual module for remediation, and you can see here we're also able to not only apply selected patches as we could with CVEM and specify a time that we want this particular remediation to occur, but just like CVM, we can also specify an automation rule. So there's a particular type of patch or common misconfiguration we want to enforce that. We can do this and not have to come back in. We can specify that the automation takes place daily, weekly, or monthly as required. So really enabling organizations not just to find problems and report on problems they have and then have to pass the burden of remediation onto a different team. You've got a single solution here. It does also support role-based access control if you want to divide activities up, but gives you that remediation right at your fingertips without having to go and do that manually in another solution. So thank you very much for watching this demonstration. I wanted to finish with a summary really to talk about why SecPod. Why SecPod is becoming the IT security team's favorite vulnerability management tool. Now, we often get labeled as a vulnerability management tool, but as you've seen, we do an awful lot more. Vulnerability management tools traditionally just look at your IT infrastructure, your traditional IT infrastructure. They don't really look at your cloud infrastructure. There's some new players in that space. So first of all, SecPod's providing that for traditional IT as well as cloud infrastructure in a single solution. But then also we're actually fixing the problem. So when I talk to a lot of customers, they come and say, hey, we've got this tool, it's great, it shows me I've got a problem, but it does nothing to improve my security posture. SecPod's the only tool that provides you with visibility of your issues, as well as allows you to fix those automatically to actually improve your IT security risk posture. In our tools, you've seen we have the fastest scanning, ease of deployment. We can get a customer up and running in just a few minutes. Accurate scan results with both network-based as well as credential-based and agent-based assessment. Automation not just for scanning but also for remediation. Beyond patching with the ability to remediate misconfigurations and anomalies. And of course, reliable support. So you truly can start to replace many of these point solutions in your environment with a single pane of glass across traditional IT and cloud infrastructure with the ability to remediate. That's all for now. If you would like a more detailed technical demonstration, drop us a line, info@secpod.com. We'll be happy to get that scheduled for you. Or if you're already ready to try SecPod free in your environment, then you can sign up at www.secpod.com. Either way, we look forward to speaking to you real soon. Thanks and have a great day.